So hi, welcome to this Facebook Live, which is all about the lover archetype. And I'm here in this, I don't know whether you can see, this amazing woodland, which is close to where I live. And I thought it'd be good to come here and hang out here and talk about the lover archetype, because the lover archetype is all about connection, feeling ourselves in the world. So it kind of feels like a good spot to be sat out here. And just to give a bit of context, I'm making a series of these little series of lives, and they're about the different Jungian archetypes: the warrior, the king, the magician and lover, and how these can be used as a map to discover the landscape of our individual shadow, because we each have a shadow, and each of our shadows is different. But it's really hard to know what it is that we're hiding, repressing and denying within ourselves. So this map can offer a lot of insights. And we all have a shadow. We've all got one, right? So whoever we are, there'll be parts of us, there'll be energies, there'll be part of our life force that we've learnt to block. And by doing shadow work, by working with our shadow, we can begin to bring home those energies and use them in our lives for what we really want to do, so we can be more ourselves. So that's what this work is about. And today I'm going to talk all about the lover. I'm just going to check this is recording. So the lover archetype is all about connection. It's the lover that allows us to connect with ourselves. So to be able to have a felt sense of this feeling body, to be in our bodies, to be able to feel ourselves, to be able to connect with the people around us, with our friends, with our lovers, relationships, with our families, and to be able to connect with the world. So as I sit here in this woodland, it's the lover within me that can have a connection, sense this connection with the nature that's around me. It's the lover archetype that can have and enjoy the sensual experience of what it is to be alive in a human body, that can go through life and enjoy the feeling of the sun on your face, or the feeling of your feet as you walk on the ground, to commune with the world, to be in the richness of life and experience that and enjoy that. The lover archetype gives you that. And it can be within your home as well, like if you cook a lovely plate of food and you're tasting and smelling that food. Using your senses is all about the lover archetype, the ability to sense. And as well as sensuality, there is sexuality within this quarter. So sexuality lives within the lover quarter. Our ability to be sexual, to bond with another, which is a really important part of being a mammal. We are mammals, and mammals are naturally social beings. We naturally bond, and we need that as part of our life. Also within the lover, the inner child lives here, the child that can play, the innocent child within us. And you might even sense that in the way that I'm talking about it. It's like there's that quality within the lover. It's very, very simple, actually. And it can get so lost. That youngness can get so lost as we grow. So a sign of a healthy lover is all of these things, and blossoming relationships, an ability to connect and empathize easily. And a sign that there is a wound in this area is often that there is something blocked within relationship, that relationships are difficult within life. And so how does this happen? The lover wound, where does that come from? Where does the wound in this archetype come from? Well, when we are born into the world, baby boy comes into the world, hopefully, what we hope is there are two loving parents there to greet them. But that isn't always the case. And even if your parents were like super great, there will have been times that they weren't always there with presence and love. And something very interesting happens when you're very young. You don't have an individuated sense of self. That doesn't develop till later. So if there is not love in your environment when you're young, the way that that's absorbed is something about you. You and your environment are the same. So we can absorb this message that I'm not lovable because you didn't get love, or there's something wrong with the way that I love. So this is the wound within the lover. And just to be clear, it's not like if you've got a wound here, you're going around in your everyday life thinking, I'm not lovable, I'm not lovable. It's there, it may be there on a deep unconscious level. And the way that you would know that would be around your relationships, your ability to create connections in your life. So what would happen if I had a wound within the lover? What would happen? How would I know that? What are the symptoms of that? Well, I might deflate. We call deflating in the lover a way of disidentifying from all of the qualities that I've talked about. So you may find that you're quite cut off from a feeling or sensual level in your life. You tend to operate on a kind of intellectual level. You're very good at working things out. You're good at planning. You're reasonable. You're good at working things out. But you're not too good at all of that feeling stuff. And it may be that people sense you as kind of a bit stoic and cut off. So this is the deflated lover, a deflation from those lover qualities. And it's kind of like what's actually happened here is we've deflated away from lover and we've gone to magician. We've gone to the level of the intellect and the mind. And I will talk about the magician next time, but this is one of the important ways to work with the lover, actually, to notice when we deflate and we go over to the magician. So a symptom of this one is, again, everything really successful in life. Things are going great in life, but relationships just don't work in some way. There's issues with relationship. Often a symptom of deflating here in the lover. And of course there's like the classic gender stereotype where there's a man and he's saying, I don't understand my wife. I mean, I'm being reasonable and she's so unreasonable. I'm just doing all the reasonable things. And I just can't understand it. She's so illogical. So this is a symptom of the man being in the deflated, right? Because it's like she speaks a different language. And often this can mean that she's more connected with a lover and she wants him to connect with a lover, to be able to meet her there, to build a connection. It's empathy, connection. And of course, that's like a massive gender stereotype, so it can play out with all genders in different ways, for sure. You can be just as deflated and be a woman or another gender. And most of us have some level of deflation, particularly if there's like feelings that we want to avoid. We might have a tendency to intellectualize or get ourselves very busy on our electrical devices when there are emotions around. So this is the deflated lover. And then of course it can go the other way. It can go into inflated lover. And this might sound a bit counterintuitive because the inflated lover is all about emotions. If I'm here, I feel everything so deeply and I'm so touched by the world around me, but it's kind of overwhelming And I spend a lot of my time crying and just being overwhelmed by my feelings. Now I know this one really well because there was a time in my life where I was pretty heavily in that inflated lover. And it may seem, actually, for people who are deflated from that perspective, it can seem like it's a good place to be because there's a lot of feeling. But if you've been there like I have, you know that it's not actually that useful, because even though you emote, and even though you hold the belief that if you feel deeply enough and cry enough, that will clear it all out, it doesn't actually make a difference. Because actually, on some level, there's a lot of drama. There are a lot of stories with the feelings that actually keep you from feeling the deeper feelings. And within the inflated lover, there's a lot of, it can be like, I'm a victim here. Like, I really want you to save me. Please, please save me. And I'm constantly emoting and reaching out to people to support me. But it never really fills me. It never really does anything because I'm in this pattern of the inflated lover. So deflated, inflated, two ways that we can go, and actually the way we go depends on how our relationship was early in life. So yeah, I mean, you can think of the inflated, it comes from that child who wants love and cries a lot, and is crying because they want love. And the deflated is more like there comes a stage where a child will stop crying, and they're kind of they cut off from those feelings. So deflated, inflated lover, and you may have a sense whether you do those in your life, and you may have a sense that this might be an area in which you need to work, if that is the case, that the lover archetype may need some development within you. Oh, the other thing that I've missed out within this is addictions. So you'll notice that both the deflated and the inflated actually are ways to avoid our feelings, avoid our deeper feelings. Another way that we do this is with addictions and compulsive behaviors. And I'm not just talking about substance addiction or if you have an addiction. A more appropriate question is, what are your addictions? Because all of us have ways of numbing ourselves when emotions become too much. So what is your default way that you avoid your feelings? Maybe it is having a drink. Maybe it's pornography. Maybe it's sugar. Maybe you go on eBay or Facebook Marketplace. Maybe you're on your phone on social media. There are many ways that we distract ourselves. We all have a way that we distract ourselves from feelings. And identifying those addictions and compulsive behaviors and being aware of those are a really important part of reconnecting with this lover archetype. So actually, this is one of the principal ways that I work with this within workshops. A key way to work with the lover is actually to look at the ways we avoid it. So to do work within the magician archetype and to bring awareness to what our patterns are, so that we can, when we feel safe enough, and it usually takes a kind of degree of holding to do that, we can begin to release the compulsive patterns that take us away from our feelings, and then we start to feel a bit more. So that's one important element, is to work with the patterns we do, to work with our addictions so that there's more space for feeling. And what's really important within this that often gets overlooked so much is just to allow the time. So just to come and sit somewhere like I'm sitting right now for a few minutes automatically, even if your head's going 100 miles an hour, automatically being in this space is going to put you more in touch with your lava. It can be as simple as going for a walk in the park in your lunch break, or even just sitting for 2 minutes and feeling, how does that sun feel against my skin, and just feeling that sensation in the body. And of course there are the embodiment practices like meditation and yoga and qigong, things like this, and some people really relish that, and it's great if you do. For some people it just doesn't resonate and it doesn't work for them. So if meditation doesn't work, it's good to do something with a bit of movement. So it may be that going for a run or a walk, or dancing or singing, or doing another physical activity, anything that brings you into a felt sense of your body is going to be helpful for getting in touch with this archetype, for bringing up the lover archetype. And the other element, of course, we have a really important thing within this element, is often we get cut off from our feelings because there's something that we don't want to feel in our body. And we say that the access emotion in the lover is grief. Now that doesn't mean that if you're in touch with the lover archetype you're going to be sad all the time. But what it does mean is if you're unwilling to feel something that's in your body, emotion gets stored, it gets stored in the body, and if we're not willing to feel it, then we're not going to have access to the other emotions as well. For most of us, I think actually for most people in this day and age, there's a level that we'll carry something within our bodies, and if we're lucky there'll be a point in our lives where we've got the level of support around us where we can begin to let those uncomfortable feelings that have been stored in the body for so long release, and then the body releases actually, and there's quite a change. And I know this very well because I actually was very, 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 very deflated, and some of you might know that years ago I had chronic fatigue syndrome. And part of that for me was a cut off from my emotions. And of course I didn't know I was cut off from my emotions, but I didn't really know what emotions were actually. But when through the process of that finishing, I started to feel a lot more, it made an enormous difference in my life. And I see this in a lot of people's journey. There comes a time where like all of the emotion that's been stored just kind of comes up, and you feel it. And it may be the ending of a relationship that is a trigger for it, or some other life event. But it's really important that we have this space to grieve, and which is so culturally not acceptable. And what is great is there are places that are opening up. There are people who are running grief circles, because we need to be able to grieve, and we need to be able to do that in connection in order to bring up this archetype, so that there's a balance between feeling a bit of that pain but not becoming totally overwhelmed by it, because there is a level of support of a group around. So it's often kind of scary to go to that place, and I love this poem. I'm going to read this poem, David White, because for me this really speaks of what it is to go to that place. It's called The Well of Grief. Those who will not slip beneath the still surface on the well of grief, turning down through its black water to the place we cannot breathe. We'll never know the source from which we drink, nor find there, in the darkness glimmering, the small round coins thrown by those who wished for something else. Yeah, appreciation to David White for that. And are we willing? Are we willing to go to that place, to go down into our grief? And it's not just the grief of what we've lost, but it's also the grief of what we never had, what we were never allowed in our lives. Maybe like things we didn't get in childhood, or we didn't get to explore in our lives. And grief about the world too, what's been lost in nature collectively. So as we begin to do this work, as we begin to go there and we find these small round coins glimmering, what's glimmering down there in the lava? Wow, it's all of this, right? It's all of this ability to experience life that can just pass us by. We can miss life if we're not able to really feel. So when we work with a lover, when we bring it back on board, we're able to enjoy the sensual experience in our lives, and we're able to build connections with other people easily. So this is like the biggest thing that can change the way that our relationships are going. And as well as that, our connection with ourself, with our own body, so we come to know ourselves on a deeper level. And this is really useful because we get to get an embodied sense of who we actually are in the world. And I think this is really important, kind of knowing like, what is it what's my life purpose? What am I here to do? Or even what am I going to do today? It's hard to answer all those questions on an intellectual level. When we've got the lover on board, it offers a different way in. It actually offers a different way into the other archetypes, the magician and the king and the warrior. So it offers a beautiful way to deepen our healing journey when we connect with the lover. So I think that's all I've got to say for now about the lover archetype. It's words don't really, you can't really learn it from words or from reading a book. It's really, the really real way to access the lover archetype is by having an experience, and that's the reason why in the workshops that I run on this, it's very much about doing little explorations in groups that help you to very gently discover what's there on a feeling level and build a deeper connection. So there is one workshop that I have coming up in November, which is specifically focused on the lover archetype, and it's called Touching the Love Within You. I think at the moment there are 5 spaces left of that. So if you're watching this and you're feeling like, yep, this is a place that I need to do work, then do get in touch. And I will come back, I think probably next week I'll do the next one, and I'll talk about the magician. And it's and they kind of, you'll see how they kind of work together. But this is the lover archetype. And I'll say goodbye for now, and I'll just give a little kind of whirl.